It's 11:14 on a Sunday night and you're lying in bed doing the math again. Not because anything went wrong, you're running the same numbers you ran last Sunday. Mortgage, car payment, student loan, groceries, trying to figure out if this is the month you finally get ahead. Meanwhile, your neighbor, same street, bought around the same time, similar house, woke up last Tuesday and decided to take the week off. No crisis. He just didn't feel like going in, so he didn't. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about why two people with almost identical situations end up living completely different lives. Today, we're going to talk about what actually happens to your money, your career, your brain, and your actual life the moment you make that last mortgage payment. And I promise, by the end of this, that Sunday night math problem is going to look very different. Nobody tells you when you're 12 years deep into a 30-year mortgage. You don't just lose a bill when it's paid off. You lose a prison sentence you'd stopped noticing you were serving. The average monthly mortgage payment in 2025 hit $2,329. That's just principal and interest, nothing else. On a median income, a standard mortgage payment consumes 43% of your disposable income. Every financial professional on earth agrees the limit is 28%. Most people with a mortgage are walking around 15 percentage points over the limit every month for 30 years. Meet the Garcias. Dual income, combined $110,000 a year, which sounds solid until you run it through what life actually costs. After taxes, they take home around $6,800. Mortgage, $2,400. Property taxes, $380. Insurance and maintenance, $520. Two car payments, $800. Student loans, $550. Health insurance, $380. Groceries, $700. Utilities and phones, $420. That leaves $130. And we haven't touched the dog who just started limping. Every career decision, every request for flexibility, every time one of them thinks about going back to school or starting something on the side, it gets filtered through one silent question. Can we still cover the mortgage? That question runs in the background of their lives like a tab they can never close.
That tab disappears the day the mortgage is paid off. And when it does, something the Garcias can barely imagine right now happens. When the mortgage disappears, you don't suddenly have the full amount to invest. Property taxes, insurance, and maintenance still exist. On a $400,000 home, you're looking at roughly $838 a month in ongoing costs. So the real deployable number is around $2,000, which is still, and I want to be precise here, absolutely insane in terms of what it does over time. Take that $2,000 and put it into a basic S&P 500 index fund. In 5 years, $146,000. In 10, $365,000. In 15, $693,000. In 20 years, $1.17 million. You contributed $480,000 of your own money. The market contributed $697,000 on top of that, more than you put in yourself. The majority of your wealth came from compound interest, not from working harder.
Before I keep going, I need to address the argument that a certain type of person in the comments is already drafting. If your mortgage rate is below 5%, you're mathematically better off investing the extra money than prepaying principal. And look, that argument is not wrong. The spreadsheet says invest the difference. Here's what the spreadsheet doesn't know. It assumes you actually invest the difference. Most people don't. They spend it. The mortgage was forced savings. When it disappears and becomes discretionary cash, a terrifying percentage of households absorb it into lifestyle creep within 18 months. The spreadsheet also assumes you have the psychological fortitude to watch your portfolio drop 40% while you still owe $2,500 a month in mandatory payments. One scenario is uncomfortable. The other is the reason people make catastrophic financial decisions under duress.
At mortgage rates above 7%, which is most people who bought since 2022, aggressive payoff becomes a very competitive guaranteed return. Between 4.5% and 7%, genuine judgment call. Below 4.5%, invest the difference, but only if you'll actually invest it and not let it quietly become better takeout habits.
The real answer isn't a rate, it's knowing yourself. A 2019 study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked what happened to people when their debts were eliminated. Anxiety dropped from 78% of participants showing clinical symptoms down to 53%. A
25 percentage point reduction in diagnosable anxiety just from closing debt accounts. The number of debt accounts closed mattered more than the dollar amount of relief. Closing a $3,000 credit card produced more psychological improvement than getting a $5,000 debt partially reduced. The brain doesn't care about the dollar amount, it cares about the open tab.
Northwestern researchers found that carrying high debt correlates with measurably higher blood pressure, higher rates of depression, and worse self-reported health, even after controlling for income. The mortgage is not just a financial obligation, it is a physiological one. Your body has been carrying it. When the Garcia's mortgage disappears, their monthly expense floor drops by $2,000. In fire math, 25 times your annual expenses, eliminating $24,000 a year in mandatory costs reduces their financial independence number by $600,000. They haven't earned more money, they haven't gotten a promotion, they've just changed what survival costs. The mortgage is a 30-year employment contract you signed without realizing it. Every dollar trapped in a mandatory monthly payment is a dollar that can't absorb risk elsewhere. When both incomes need to run at full capacity just to survive, neither person can afford to take a pay cut to do something meaningful. Research published in 2020 found that improved housing security led to significant increases in business formation, particularly among women and non-white entrepreneurs who are disproportionately affected by financial exposure. Leveraged homeownership significantly reduces entrepreneurship. The effect is strongest when loan-to-value ratios are highest. At year 22, the Garcia's mortgage is gone. Mrs. Garcia takes the role with more meaning and slightly less salary because they can afford the difference now. Mr. Garcia starts the contracting business he's been talking about since 2021 because one bad quarter no longer means they lose the house. Their income didn't change, but their decisions changed completely. A brief moment of honesty, because I promised you the real numbers and not the fantasy version. The house isn't free once the mortgage is paid off. Property taxes are up 27% nationally since 2019. Homeowners insurance has jumped 52% since 2020. The 1% annual maintenance rule still applies. Your paid-off home still costs roughly $838 a month to own. Plan for the real number. In 1989, 3% of homeowners over 80 still had a mortgage. Today, nearly a third do. The share of 65 to 79-year-olds carrying mortgages has gone from 24% to 41% in 30 years. We are dragging housing debt into retirement at a scale that has never happened before in American history, and we're doing it quietly, like it's normal. It is not fine. Bi-weekly payments, cutting your monthly payment in half and paying every 2 weeks, results in 13 full payments per year instead of 12. That one change cuts 5 to 6 years off the loan and eliminates over $119,000 in interest. One extra payment per year, $119,000 gone.
The difference between paying off your house at 55 versus 63 and the life you get to live at 55 with no mortgage versus the one you're living at 63 waiting for it to end, based on everything we've covered, is not a small difference. First, verify your lender filed the lien release and you received your deed. Lenders occasionally just don't file it, and you find out 3 years later when you try to sell the house and discover you don't legally own what you've been paying for. This is the most boring sentence in the video and also the most important one to remember.
Before you redirect a single dollar, rebuild your emergency fund. You've been house poor for years. Your reserves are almost certainly thinner than they should be. Get 6 to 12 months of your new, lower expenses in liquid savings before you do anything ambitious. Then deploy the former payment in order. Max the 401k match first. That's a 50 to 100% guaranteed return, and nothing else on this list comes close. Max the Roth IRA, $7,000 a year in 2025, grows completely tax-free. Max the 401k contribution limit, $23,500. Fund an HSA if eligible. Then pour everything remaining into a taxable brokerage with low-cost index funds. The mortgage wasn't just a large bill, it was a permission slip you had to silently ask for every time you wanted to do something different with your life. Want to leave a job you hate? Better check if you can still cover the mortgage. Want to start something risky? The mortgage. Want to take a pay cut to do work that matters? You can't. The mortgage. For most people, for most of their adult lives, the mortgage is the invisible hand that shapes nearly every major decision they make. When it's gone, the grip releases. That's what the Garcias discover at year 22. Not that they're suddenly wealthy, though the compounding takes care of that in time.
but that they can finally make decisions based on what they actually want, rather than what the mortgage requires. That's the change nobody talks about. That's the one that matters most. That Sunday night math you've been running in the dark, you're not going to run it forever. But the people who get to stop running it the earliest aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who understood what the finish line was actually worth and ran toward it on purpose.